Welcome to Team Link 2013. This is our first health presentation. And so Sohailla has a lot to say. She talks fast, so you have to listen fast when she starts talking. But let me introduce Sohailla Digsby. She's very well known for any of you that have been part of Team Link in the past. But let me read you just how great she is. She's a registered dietitian and a fitness instructor from the Evans area. She started teaching aerobics when she was studying nutrition at the University of Georgia and has kept it up for 17 years. She doesn't look much over 17, does she? She loves to motivate and encourage people to be their best physically, including their nutritional health. She and her husband and their 3 small children moved back home a couple of years ago after living in South Carolina coastal years for several years. In South Carolina, Sohailla worked full-time as a dietitian in corporate wellness, hospitals, public health clinic settings, media, and in private practice, consulting clients for weight loss and eating disorders. When she moved here, Sohailla proposed that the YMCA should offer nutritional services to better meet members' needs and to create her current part-time position within the Metro Augusta area. She treasures her time as a mommy. She has 3 wild and wiggly little ones, and that's very, very true. They're just like their mama. And shares her love for nutrition and fitness with us, the Y, part-time. She is passionate about teaching and living out a lifestyle of balanced nutrition and fitness, and wants most of it calls to make it fun, practical, and memorable so that all of you will be compelled to do the best for the long haul. So let me welcome Sohailla Digsby.
All right, thank you guys all for being here. And Janet didn't tell you that she and I have been doing Team Lean together. This is our 6th year.
6 years?
Yes, so we've been doing this together for a long time, and we really love this. So I'm so excited for you guys to all be here, and I hope this is just a really big deal for you over the next several weeks, a big adventure and a big change for your lifestyle. I'm not a fan of, just letting this be through March and then go back to the normal thing. I love to think that you guys are going to take home something that you can carry out forever. So I like to think of this being the heaviest or the least healthy that you'll ever be today. And I like to think of it that way, and I believe that that's possible. I have a handful of patients or clients over the years that really do that, and then I have a handful that don't. But I hope you guys are part of that group that do. So, Janet, did you want to mention something about the raffle?
If you just want to tell me we're going to do that, I'm sorry, at the end.
Yes, at the end. If you didn't fill out a raffle ticket, just let Janet know, and we'll pick yours up at the very end. We're going to do a raffle. Earth Fare kindly donated a $65 value basket for us. And we'll be doing raffles at the end of most all the seminars, so that'll give you something to look forward to and to listen to our jabbering through. But, and like Janet said, I do talk kind of fast because I think there's so much information. But what I've learned over the years of consulting with clients is that information isn't really what you need all the time. It's the practical tips to actually help you do it. And at the Y, where I do nutrition and teach aerobics, it's the Marshall Y in Evans, the personal trainers, they can trade out, the participants can trade out one of their personal training sessions to get a nutrition session. And most of the time they don't, because they say, I just need someone to work me hard and I know what I need to do in nutrition. But then they don't do it. They say they know what they need to do. They know they're not supposed to eat things that make their fingers feel greasy and their lips feel slimy. That's not how you're supposed to eat. But they know that. And just this past couple weeks, usually every year at the beginning of Team Lean, I have some inspiration that really makes me excited about this. And this year, I'll tell you my little inspiration is I've been teaching classes, and at the new year, all of our aerobics classes are packed. And people have a lot of those heart rate monitors now, so they'll be like, how many are we up to? And so if they don't have a monitor, somebody will yell across the room, we're at 600 calories, and everybody's getting excited. And people really want to achieve this number as they go in there, and so that helps motivate them a lot of times. But then I'll see them leave the gym, and their hair's like matted to their face, and they're barely walking out. And they feel so good, like they just did the best thing ever. Have you guys felt like that since New Year's? Has anybody worked hard and felt like that? And I love that, but here's the part that I don't love. I was with somebody that was in that condition the other day, and we went to Moe's, and she got a cheese dip, which, I don't know if y'all know about cheese dip, and I like cheese. I hate to talk bad about it, but a cheese dip is up in the 4 digits in calories. And so I thought she just worked as hard as she could for 45 minutes and then she double replaced what she burned off. And it just made me sad because I thought these people think that they're doing what they need to do because they're working so hard in the gym. And I want you to work so hard in the gym, but make it worth your while by doing both pieces. And if there's one piece you do better, it should be the nutrition piece because it has the most impact. But I want you to do both. But I just think when I see people leaving there, and then as an instructor, there's some instructors, not me, that say, you know, they feel good when they make you so sore you can't walk. But if you're so sore you can't walk, then you're not going to move all day and you won't burn those calories you would have burned. You know, if you're skipping getting the mail because of your workout, then you worked too hard. And some people think that's cool. They're like, yeah, they said they couldn't even get the mail. They couldn't even get off the potty. It's great. It's not great. I don't want you to just sit. And some of the research is kind of fun because it shows that people who work out that hard feel like they can just sit the rest of the day. And then there's a lot of research that say that people who don't even work out that hard but just stay on their feet most of the day come out with less total body fat, especially centrally. So I want you to do a little bit of both. I want you to work hard enough that when you leave, you feel awesome. But not so awesome that you think you can drive by McDonald's on the way home and get the extra large fry this time or the Biggie or whatever it is. So really think about the food. It matters so much. And some people say, well, it's just my cheat day or whatever. One big cheat day can erase a week of packing your clothes for the gym, getting in there, working out the child care, taking the that's a lot of work when you guys make that worth your time. So make it worth your time in the whole big picture. So just know that I'm going to be really pushing for you to do both and in the big picture because both are so important. Okay, so let's go ahead with the shape of the healthy diet here for you. Okay, so instead of raising your hand, in the spirit of calorie burning, we are going to jump out of our seat with great vigor, plyometrically. Y'all know what plyometrics is? It's when you jump so big that you're like, your heart rate goes up and you have to catch your breath. That's just a loose definition of it. Okay, so y'all don't look excited about that at all. But you know we're going to do it. So here we go. Raise your hand if you must, but jump out of your seat if you have tennis shoes on or in your car. That's what I'm saying. Thank you. All right, sit down. Very good, very good. Hold the applause till the end. Have one, raise your hand if you have one of your, this one you want to sneak up and not jump so much. One of your top 5 most tempting foods in your home, your work desk, your purse, or your car. Okay? All right, so if you're jumping up now, you're sitting down quick. That's not a ton of you, not as many who exercise today. And it doesn't, if you can still exercise, there's still time. So don't worry if you didn't get that done. But if you have your most tempting foods or your most tempting things within your reach, you're setting yourself up for trouble. What you bring home from the grocery store, you will eventually eat, most likely. So don't just say you're getting it for your kids or your husband or your wife or whatever it is. Just there's some things that you need to talk with your family about and say, Mommy doesn't think this is the best thing, or Daddy, or whatever it is to have in our house right now. I need y'all to team with me, to call them Team Lean in your house, whatever it is, to work with you, okay? So go ahead. You don't have to throw it away. I mean, if it's unopened, please give it to the food bank. I'm not suggesting that you burn it or anything dramatic, but do rid yourself of those things that are going to get you into trouble, because do we ever have weak moments? And they're usually after the 9 p.m. hour. So if you're really weak after then, just go to bed. Okay. Raise your hand if you have already exercised today. Oh, all right. I meant to say jump up. They're like, I already did. See? I told y'all people who work out think they don't have to get up later. Okay, jump out of your seat if you already exercised today because you still got something left. Good job. Good job. That's most everybody. Okay, what about a balanced breakfast? How many of you had a balanced breakfast today? Jump, come on. If you had breakfast, you have the energy to jump. Okay, good. I know, up, down, up, down. You're going to have burned at least like 17 calories. Okay, how many of you already know what your workouts are going to be through the whole week? Woo! That's what I'm saying. Okay, and then how many of you know exactly, we have a good time in here, y'all. How many of y'all know exactly what your Team Lean goal is? Okay, and if you haven't, you still got a little time to think about that, but let's do that quick. Okay, thank you. That's really important. The research shows that there's a handful of things that helps people who lose, the study is, people who lost 30 pounds and kept it off for more than a year were studied. And what they found is they needed a lot of these things. They needed accountability with a professional, and that can be a personal trainer, it can be a registered dietitian. Accountability with non-professionals is great too, but the research did show when they had somebody that was checking up on their food records and their weight and all that, and that was the only other one that didn't have on here. But breakfast and a plan for exercise, a lot of those things were part of the package of the people who maintained the weight loss. So those are some of the things we're going to highlight, but I just wanted to congratulate you all. You can go ahead and give yourself an applause if you stood up on all of them except for number 2, okay? So speaking of goals, which of these goals is most likely to be achieved? So what is your team lean goal? To get into shape, okay? To lose 50 pounds, that's a little more specific. What about to drag myself to the gym all week? That person sounds like they're going to win, right? Not at all, not at all. Because if we have a really bad, it's like when you eat your vegetables with a frown, they taste yucky. That's what I tell my kids. If you eat them while you're pouting, they're going to be yucky. To eat 1,000 calories and exercise twice a day. Does that sound realistic? No. Now, over my 6 years of Team Lean, I have seen that done, but I don't always recommend it because you set your body up for something that you can't even begin to maintain. And a lot of times you throw your metabolism out of whack too. All right, to fit in my skinny jeans. A lot of people like that one because this is skinny jean season this year, you know. To lose 20 pounds by March 29th. Which of these sounds most realistic? Number 6, because if you've ever learned about goals, that's a SMART goal. Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timed. That's what SMART stands for. So that means you can really achieve it, and you can look back and see that you did it on that date and what the total was. 50 pounds is not that realistic in 12 weeks unless you started with a lot more weight than some of the people around you. You may be able to lose more because you started with more, especially if you're a male. I know. They lose it faster. Don't stress about that because we're not comparing ourselves to the boys. All right, so again, just giving you that push, that committing that this is it. This is the heaviest. This is the least healthy you've ever been. I've already had a guy in the past 2 weeks who's been bottoming out on his blood sugar since we started with his good nutrition, which I don't want people dropping too low on their blood sugar, but he's coming off of insulin. And he's only lost like 10 pounds. So you don't have to lose a ton of weight to come down on your medicines. And as a side note, if you are on insulin or blood pressure meds, if you're losing drastic weight, you need to definitely be in touch with your doctor because you may need to come off your meds. Okay, and be checking those things. So that accountability piece, I'll tell you the busiest month for a dietitian is not January, it's February. Because a lot of people try it on their own in January and then they realize in February they need help. So if you think, just have this tightest inkling, I wish I had some help, I wish I had a personal trainer, I wish I had a dietitian, don't wait till the last 4 weeks of Team Lean when you're not able to kick it into high gear by then, okay, in terms of winning, or whatever your goal is. Go ahead and get that scheduled. I see clients at the Marshall Y, and we can talk afterward, or you can call the Marshall Y to make an appointment if you're interested in that. Okay, so do get the help. And again, I know you'll say, I know what to do, but it really helps for somebody to help you set up all the barriers, knock through those, get you a menu, get you a meal plan, look at your history, your weight history, and what's worked for you, and personalize that. So if you need that, please get that before it gets too close to the end of March. Okay, so what weight is ideal for you? Sometimes, like those goals showed, we have unrealistic goals. Has anyone ever kind of frowned when the doctor told them, well, if you're 5'5", you should weigh 125 pounds? And if you're a man, if you're 5'5", you should weigh 130. Like, does that sound like everybody should fit into this exact thing? And we do, we hear that, and because those insurance tables say that sometimes, but we know that real people have different makeups and bone densities and muscle mass and all that. So personally, I don't get all that hung up on what that is. I usually just ask people, what was a weight that you've been in the past 10 years that you felt really good at? And if I don't say 10 years, people tell me their wedding weight from 25 years ago that they have never seen. And I'll ask them, oh, okay, 140. When was the last time you were 140? It was 1972. And I'm like, oh, and I get that all the time. So don't shoot for a weight that you have not been in 25 years as your short-term goal. Maybe later. I'm not trying to put out your fire if you have this great goal. But go ahead and start with a short-term goal that you can get to through March. And usually that's an average of 1 to 3 pounds a week. 1 to 2 is really healthy and comes off. And I know that does not sound very exciting. And the very first couple weeks you can lose more. And if you have a lot of water weight on you and your blood pressure is getting better as you lose weight, you can lose even more of that. And if you are larger in general or a male in general, then you will lose a little more per week. But most people lose 1 to 2 pounds. And then some people tell me, I didn't lose weight this week. And I'm like, oh, well, what was your weight? You know, it was 220 and now I'm 219. I'm like, okay, well that's weight loss, but it doesn't feel like much if they've lost 3 or 4 pounds the first 4 weeks. So I just want to tell people you will lose more at the beginning and it'll slow down, and that's normal. We just don't want it to totally plateau, which is also kind of normal, but we'll push through that, and we have some help for that in the middle of Team Lean to help you do that. We have a plateau week that we can do some Q&A through. Okay, but what is most important for your health is if your waist measures wider than your hips, then that means you have fat tissue around your internal most important organs. And so that leads you into potential chronic disease. So, and everybody's shaped differently. Some people are more like the pear, some people are more like the apple, but the apple shape, and it's genetic, you don't get to pick where you put your fat, but the apple shape is more dangerous for your heart. So if you have that, that's just an extra motivator for you to work a little harder, because you know that heart disease and all those things are, you know, quite possible if you keep that fat tissue around that central region. Okay, but it's really important to measure that, and that's more important to me than the numbers, because a lot of people, you know, just like muscular people and different people, they get frustrated with those weights. You guys know what I'm talking about? Or if you just started weight training, you'll gain a little weight. Will you gain about 10 pounds from weight training? No. Okay, like 2 to 4, maybe 6 if you have a large build and you tend to put on muscle really quickly, so be careful if it goes much higher than that. Okay, so our objectives for today: calorie balance for weight loss, how what I eat affects my body, proper portion sizes, what a health-promoting kitchen looks like, how to build a healthy plate, and resources for further weight loss help. So we're going to get right into those. If you don't know what calorie level is best for you, you could go online and type in, like on my food tracker, super tracker, like the USDA food pyramid, now Choose My Plate, used to be food pyramid, mypyramid.gov. You could go to that, you could go to MyFitnessPal, a lot of these different things, and you could put in your weight and your height, but so could your friend who has the same weight and height and a totally different build, and it would give you the same calorie level. So I like to personalize it even more based on a lot of history when I have a one-on-one with someone, but it is a good estimate to use something like that, but it may be different. For example, if you tend to be somebody who's lost and gained weight many times over the years, then your metabolism is slightly probably compromised a little bit, because if you've dipped down lower than you needed to be, you have to fight harder for your body to realize that you're not going to do that again. I think there's like this little fear in your metabolism that that might happen again, because that's not healthy. And so sometimes it's harder for people who do that, the yo-yo dieting a lot, to maintain their metabolism. So please don't do that. Don't go under 1,000 calories for these next several weeks. Don't even go under 1,200 unless you're like 5 feet. Okay, if you have a very petite frame, you can go low, but especially if you're 6 feet tall and you're doing this with your wife who's 5'2", you guys don't need the same calorie level, unless you're way sedentary and she's way active. You know, some of those will balance out, but think about those things. And if you need some help with calories, we can do that on an appointment basis, because everybody in here would be on a different number, just about. But I'll give you an average as we go through this. Another one of those things that really helps people maintain weight loss is to be accountable to themselves by keeping a food log. How many of y'all have been doing that since you've started Team Lean? Okay, I have seen in my one-on-one appointments people who keep a food log that's true and accurate, and keep it daily instead of just like at the end of the week, whatever they remember, because we always remember the good stuff. Then it really helps them. It really does, especially if they enter it in one of those computerized ones on their phone or their computer right after or right before a meal. I had somebody this week who got those blueberry Otis Spunkmeyer muffins. Anybody want to shoot a guess about how many calories those are? About 500, 480. Okay, that's like way lot. That's a lot in like 17 bites and you're done kind of thing. And or even 10, depending how big your bites are. But she had no idea until she entered it in, and she said, I wish I had entered in what I was going to eat beforehand, because I would have thrown that away or taken that off. And she's like, and I bought them at Sam's, so I have like 15 more. And so we talked about reading labels before we buy things, and entering your food in the food log before you even eat it, so you're accountable to what you've already entered in. And just little things like that really do make a difference. I have seen people really, really successful with the MyFitnessPal, because it gives you a little pie chart and different things like that. So those are helpful. So those, and the Super Tracker is the USDA regulated one, so there won't be any misinformation of calories like there might be on some of those that the users can add their own food to. Okay, so that's the one that is most tried and true, but sometimes it's not as user-friendly as some of the other ones that might be able to have apps for. And I don't believe, there may be a Super Tracker app out now. We can check into that. Okay, again, being realistic and having a plan. Okay, if you haven't decided to keep a food log, I think this would be a great week to start, tomorrow morning. Okay, and by next week, you can look at the person on your right or left and say, ask me next week if I did my food log. Bring it in, print it for them, whatever it is. With your team, if you want to win, your team can log food and exercise together and check over it and highlight each other's bloopers and say, don't do that, our team needs you. Whatever it takes, that is a big, big one, is logging that food. And I've just seen that over and over the years. And one thing I'd like you to do in the back of your mind as we're going, and I might mention something and you might think, oh, that is holding me back. You know, it might be the muffin I mentioned and you thought, oh, I did that too. It might be something we talk about with like having your shoes in your car. I know when I worked in a full-time setting, if I did not stop by the gym on the way home, it was unlikely that once I got home, I would turn around and go back. Would y'all say that's? Right. I mean, I put my fuzzy slippers on when I walk in the door, and once those are on, the gym is not happening. So I got to do it beforehand. Okay, and that's why morning workouts are more effective. It's mostly because they happen. When I used to teach a real early morning aerobics class, I lived at the beach, and there were certain weeks at the beach that your afternoon classes had nobody in them. Holiday weeks, I would have 20 the week before and 4 the next week. Because if you live at the beach, you're hosting people over the holidays and different times of the year. But my morning classes never wavered because they can get it done early in the morning. And so some people say, isn't it better to do it in the morning? And I'm like, well, you're more likely to do it unless you just hate mornings and you're like, not me. And you know if that's you, so find the best time for you. But sometimes just making your plan to include some early mornings, make sure it gets done. And things don't come up with kids or with soccer or with whatever that comes up in the evenings. Meetings and whatnot. So make a list of the things in your life that are holding you back. And I may have mentioned some of them, like I said. This is something you might want to share with somebody on your team and say, I've realized that me driving by this restaurant that I've stopped at for the past, we had one lady 2 years ago, she went to McDonald's every day for 23 years on her drive to North Augusta. And she came up afterward and told me and said, this is the first quarter of my life that I have not gone to McDonald's every single morning for a biscuit in 23 years of working in North Augusta. And I thought, that is awesome. Like she had to, but she's like, I had to take a different drive. I had to take a different route because I couldn't, it was just almost like my blinker went on and I just went there. So you may have to take a different route. You know, you may have to reorganize your kitchen and your pantry if you always walk in and fling open the chocolate pantry or whatever it is, the chocolate drawer or whatever. I know when I was little, my mom used to have a butterscotch drawer. And if I ever wanted a butterscotch, I knew where the butterscotch drawer was. So maybe you have something like that. But go ahead and think about what those are, because even if you learn everything I tell you today, if you have those barriers that are still in place, you'll trip over them when you get home. Okay? All right. So what goes in your mouth counts. I started off with that. If the foods you eat provide too little or too much or too many nutrients for several years, then later in life you do suffer some of those disease effects for most people. So in the moment, sometimes you feel like you're invincible and it's not going to catch up with you, but a lot of people here could probably even share that eventually it may. And think of food as fuel. If you think of food as fuel, you'll know you need it for your exercise. You wouldn't drive your car on empty if you were going to do a race. You know that you need it, and it's to sustain and maintain you to be strong and smart and all those things that you need fuel for. And you won't be able to be those things if you don't have enough fuel. And if you have too much fuel, this is what happens. This is what happens. It's like standing at a gas tank and it's saying full and you just keep fueling it. And the gas runs down your pants and it ruins your nice pants and it runs over your shoes and it ruins your nice shoes. And you just keep fueling it. Has anybody ever done that before? That's why people don't wear belts on Thanksgiving. They don't. They say, I'm going to wear my comfy pants all holidays long so I can eat whatever I want. And then they go put back on their, breeches for work and they're like, oh, I want my comfy pants. That's setting yourself up to allow for failure. So don't set yourself up for allow for failure. But if you fill your fuel tank and do not drive your car around, and I love this analogy, it's really spoken to some people and helped them really understand what I mean. If you don't drive your car around, because what happens when you drive your car around? Full goes to empty, then you need to fill it back up and then it goes down. But if you fill it up to full and then you have a seat, and maybe your work is sedentary and that's not always your choice, so maybe you sit for 8 hours at work and then you go home, and you drive home sitting for 30 minutes, and then you get home and you sit, and then you sit, and then you sit. But your car's not really getting empty, but then you have a big old dinner, and it's still going full, 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 full. So what we do is we just overspill what we take in because we didn't need that nutrient, and we didn't need that food. Okay? So this is what happens. Where's my smack? Now, those who've been with me before know I like to smack this little thing. You ready? That's 5 pounds of fat, and it's nice and jiggly, and it's even greasy to touch and bumpy and cottage cheese-like everybody likes to talk about. But when I did the first year of Team Lean, it was so funny. While we had this out, we had a big kickoff in one place that year, and while we had this out, people would come and grab parts of their spouses and go, honey, and I was just mortified, and I thought if we just had a little video camera on my shoulder, these people, 20 different people did that same thing. It was so funny, but this is the point, is you know where you keep this, right? A lot of people know where they keep this. Some people spread it out all over their bodies, and some people have it very low, very easy to spot, located in one spot, and then they lose it from the spot they didn't want to lose it from first, right? And that's pretty normal, and everybody can go, about that together. But this is what it spills over into, because your body has to do something with that extra fuel that you took in. It just has to. There's no way it can say, well, I know this was your cheat day, so I'll just let it all go. It has to save it as fat for later use, but sometimes we don't ever use it in times of need, because a lot of times, thankfully, we don't have too many times of food need. Okay? And if you want to look at that back slide, it's just one you can peek at. It talks about how many things eating affects. I love at the end of Team Lean how many people tell me that they sleep better because they're exercising. I love how many people tell me that their digestive system works better and their bowel movements are more normal and all that stuff you guys don't want to hear about. But people come and tell me afterward, wow, exercise and drinking water, all that stuff is good. And I'm like, yeah, I know. People who don't sleep can come off of sleeping aids sometimes because you're supposed to move a lot during the day to be tired at night a lot of times. It's just part of how we're supposed to be. So that's a sheet to give you some more ideas of what benefit you're going to bring yourself. Besides weight loss. Okay, so a 10% weight loss is shown to improve blood cholesterol, blood sugar. How many of you guys have an accountability partner besides your team in general, but one person that's going to check up on you? Ooh, that's something we can work on. Okay? Having somebody that's going to check on you, that's going to even say, what did you eat today? Or, somebody that you're not going to get a fight with about it, maybe not your spouse. Sometimes it's like, why are you getting in my business? So invite somebody that you want in your business on this one that will encourage you and not just rag you out, But somebody that cares about you and knows that you really want to do this. Again, I had a client just the past 2 weeks, and he said, everyone at my work knows I'm taking this seriously this time around, and they're not going to let me fail. And I thought, that's awesome. He works in a place where there's lots of events and catering and food, and he said, everybody knows. I've told everybody that works with me, hold me to this. And that's a brave move, and I think that's a good move if you want to take it seriously, to let people around you know. Okay, keeping the exercise and food journal. Have I already said that about the food journal? Okay. All right, and choosing a meal plan and exercise that can be adhered to for a lifetime. Please don't do crazy, crazy things that just make you crazy hungry and crazy gripey. If your family members say you have been so mean since Team Lean has started, then you're doing one of those crazy things that doesn't fuel you very well, because some people get grumpy when they need food and they don't give themselves enough, okay? So please don't just do something that you can only do for a week and then you're going to practically pass out. And I see people do that at Team Lean. We're not trying to do that kind of stuff, okay? One thing I love is moderation, variety. People hear that all the time. They're like, moderation, variety, whatever, But what that means is sometimes you are a little bit hungry when you leave somewhere, and sometimes you're a little bit full, but you're never really starving yourself for the sake of a diet, and you're never really so full that you need to not wear a belt or, unbutton your buckle or something like that, like people do on the holidays, okay? That's healthy eating. It's feeling full, a little bit hungry, a little bit satisfied most of the time, but not ever feeling too extreme on one or the other. So some people say, I know I'm doing good if I go to bed hungry every night. Well, that makes me sad. That's not really how we're supposed to be, unless we're going to bed 6 hours after dinner, and then maybe either we need to adjust our dinner time or go to bed earlier, okay? But for the most part, if you're sleeping, which is important for weight loss, because your hormones will send signals if you don't get enough sleep that tell you to eat more and tell your body to conserve more, just as a side note. So some people, that's the first thing they need to do, right? But don't starve yourself and think that's going to do you well, because I am telling you, working in wellness nutrition, most of the people that I see one-on-one have done that. More than half of the people I have seen one-on-one have come to me after they've been on every kind of crazy diet and their metabolism is quickly sloping downwards. That means their body's like, forget it. You know, forget it. I'm not going to work with you. I'm just going to hang on to whatever you've got, because I don't ever know if you're really going to feed me well. So please don't do that. There are long-term consequences for that. So if you've done it before, we can see if we can jump your metabolism back up, but it may not take it over and over and over. So be smart about that. But ask yourself, why am I hungry? You know, are you ever just mouth hungry because someone brings chocolate chip cookies to work? Well, all of a sudden you're starving. And I know what you mean. So, or something smells good, or you see pizza on TV and the cheese streams across the whole screen, and all of a sudden you're famished and you find yourself. And if you have a pizza in your phone, if you have like fast food pizza or pizza in your phone, take it out of your phone during Team Lean and beyond. Okay? If it's like speed dial and you're already there, and before they're at your house, before you even realize what you've done, and then you smell the stringy cheese and then it's too late, take those things out of your phone. Set yourself up for success. But why am I eating? Am I truly hungry? A lot of times, and me included, a lot of times we just need to go to bed a little earlier and not stay up till we're too hungry. You know what I mean? That's my main thing. If I'm really that hungry, then I should have just gone to bed a little earlier. Okay, and what could meet the need without overfueling? Probably half the people in this room are stress or emotional eaters. And so just taking the food out of your house, doing that thing we talked about at the beginning, you're just going to want to go get it, because that's what gave you comfort. And if that's you, you are not alone at all, but what could fill that need? And that's what you need to really be thinking about for you. And for a lot of people, especially people who have the bypass surgery, I've seen them, they vomit a lot because that food is their comfort and they don't know what else to do, so they go ahead and eat and it gets to be too much and then they vomit because they don't have that much space in their belly. And I'm telling you that because they need to be prepared, and we all need to be prepared, that just taking the food out of your reach without having a plan of what to reach for. And I think it's very good to meditate on verses and scripture and phrases and pictures of you before and times in your life that you enjoyed being healthy and times that you look forward to of being healthy with grandkids or family members and things like that, to keep those at the forefront of your mind. Because really, as we all know, eating that big chunk of ice cream only felt good for those few minutes. And while I'm on that note, I do want to make a point. This is what I see the most often that gets people into trouble over Team Lean years. I did so awesome this morning. All I had for breakfast was Special K with skim milk, and I was keeping my log, and then I got to lunch work, and I was so busy, so I wasn't even that hungry, so I just like picked up my salad, and it's awesome. It's 12:30 in the afternoon, and all I've had is 400 calories. And everybody's like, high five, that's so awesome. And they're like starving their brain and their body, and it's 12 and it's 2. And then they go home and it's 4:30 and they're driving by everything, or 5:30. Everything looks good. Everything looks good. And they resist and resist and resist, and they're still so proud of themselves because it is 5:30 and they've still made it on 425 calories all day. And that's awesome because, you know, I'm doing so great. And they walk in their house, fling, fling, every cabinet, every fridge door, everything is open. And everything that you love the most is right there, and people around you are going to let you eat it because they know not to mess with you when you're hungry. Okay? And then you eat it and eat it and eat it, and you think, oh, why did I do that? And you make up for the 300 calories. If you had just eaten that extra 300 here and 200 there and 100 there, then you could have walked in the house sane, because when we don't have food in our system, our blood has no sugar in it, and our body draws from the blood nothing. And we do crazy, crazy things that we wouldn't have otherwise done. And then we hate ourselves for it. That night we go to bed and we start the whole day over. And I see that all the time. And then people say, well, I'm scared to eat that many calories at the beginning of the day because what if I do that bad thing at night that I did last night, and then add that with that, and then I'm way over what I need. But trust your body that it needs fuel when you're moving. It doesn't need so much fuel when you're laying down. But that's when we give it, when we finally relax and we're not so busy and we think about food. So really take most of your calories and put them on the early part of the day. If there's nothing else you take home from this, take most of your calories and go in this direction as the day goes on rather than this direction. Okay? Because in America we eat our biggest meal at dinner. But really it's not a bad idea to kind of taper off at the end of the day. One other dietitian that is a well-known dietitian, she always says, fuel by day, diet by night. Which means be strong for your exercise, for your work, for everything that you want to do during the day, and then wrap it up in the evening when you don't really need so many calories. Okay? And that means somebody say, well, if I do what you say and this is a lifetime thing, then I never get to have something yummy again. Okay? That's not true, but you might not ever do it the way you did before. Because some people say, like, a splurge means on their whole anniversary weekend, they have whatever they want. Okay? So a healthy splurge means on your anniversary weekend, you pick a meal and you get either the appetizer or the glass of wine, or either the dessert or the extra bread. Or, you pick one or the other and you enjoy the heck out of that. And you don't feel deprived, you enjoy that a lot. But if you decide, I'm just going to cheat all weekend because it's a special weekend, you might take 3 weeks at the gym to make up for it. So don't do that to yourself, especially if it's like a cruise or something like that, where people just go, eh. So just remember, your body has to store that fat. So don't, if you mess up, don't just say, well, forget it, I messed up. People do that all the time. I messed up today, so let's just, where do you want to go tonight? Don't do that, because you can recover it. Okay, those calories can be burned off, but when you let it go for too long, it can't. So if you see somebody in your team saying, well, I had a bad day, so I'm just going to go eat this when I get home and eat that, and I'll start again tomorrow, grab them and say, no, you had a bad moment. Okay, let's not keep going that way. Because it is hard to make up for that, that whole cheat day or whatever it is. So I think splurges are okay, but just know when I say splurge, I mean as a part of the meal. So if you really love McDonald's, then say, I'll get the fries when I go to McDonald's, but then I'll get a grilled chicken salad to go with it. Okay? I don't mean McDonald's means Coke, shake, biggie fries, triple, how many meats can I get on one burger kind of thing. That's not what I mean by splurge. Okay? That's not what I mean by splurge. I just mean one piece of it that you can really enjoy and feel like you splurge, but not that you're mad at yourself when you leave. Does that make sense? I mean, I know everybody knows that, but just say it to yourself and to your team that a splurge does not mean I just ruin all this work. Because do you know what happens? At Valentine's Day, this room will be less than half of you. And this is my 6th year, and I can promise you. And that's because, A, it's been 6 weeks, so if you either started a habit or you didn't. And B, people eat something bad on Valentine's and they give up. They went out to eat and they ate everything bad and they give up. Just look at your team before you go and like, we're not going to be those people. We're going to be here. We're going to prove her wrong, okay? This is the 6th year. I would love y'all to prove us wrong. But so far for 5 years, that's been the case. So don't do that. Don't give up before the getting's good. And even with exercise, if you give up, it gets easier. You don't huff and puff all the time after you get over that hump. But most people give up before it gets fun. So don't, and I teach Zumba and I tell people that all the time. People give up. I'm like, even if you feel like a ridiculous doing it, because most people do, the first few times, I'm like, don't give up, because it really is fun after you don't care about yourself anymore. And that takes about 5 weeks or 5 times or however many it is for you. But most people give up before the getting's good on everything. So push through that this time, y'all. Really, I'm encouraging you to do that. Okay, let's get to the nitty-gritty of nutrition. Hopefully you're feeling motivated. Okay? And people say, well, my grandma did everything I do, and she lived to be 94. Her burger and her bagels did not look like your burger and your bagels. Okay? And probably her flat screen TV did not look like your flat screen TV. It might not have been quite as wide. There's just lots of things that were different then. So don't think it's the same. You may have to just get up more like she did and think about that. So when McDonald's opened in the 50s, their big meal was 600 calories. Now, an average meal at fast food and other restaurants is about 1,200 calories, which if you know anything about dieting calories, most people when they're trying to diet, it's between 1,200 and 1,700, depending on their size and their frame and their muscle mass. So portions, even if you're eating healthy, and that's another thing about that car analogy. If I put the best fuel in my car, if I still keep holding the fuel nozzle in after it says full and still spill it out on the floor, it's still going to spill over. Even if I'm eating super healthy, it's still going to spill over. So don't think just because it's healthy you can eat as much as you want. You may be able to eat more, but you still have to cut yourself off at a reasonable portion. Does that make sense? Okay. Y'all are doing so good. All right, good listening. Exactly what is this serving? This is just a handy little slide you can look at when you get home, but it just gives you a frame of reference, because a lot of times people say, when I say, are you eating 5 fruits and vegetables a day? They're like, 5 fruits and vegetables? I don't mean the whole fruit and the whole vegetable. Some people think, I could never do that. And I'm like, you probably did it today. Because a serving is smaller than you think, because we eat more than we think a lot of times, okay? So I'll go back into these a little bit more, but this is a helpful slide. This is the meatiest slide there is, so if you can't read it, let us know, and after the seminar we can send you an email of it. But basically this just says go home and do like what they do on the talk shows and open your pantry and say, you don't belong here because I'm trying to lose weight. Go home and say, a healthy pantry has these. Okay, so a shape of a healthy kitchen. Are most of the items in your kitchen canned and boxed? Do the grains come with a seasoning packet, rice-a-roni, hamburger helper, that whole aisle in the grocery store that we don't even need to go down? On the label, does the number of grams of total carbohydrate almost match the number of sugar, because almost everything in that food is sugar? Now, if it's a fruit, that's going to be the case, but if it's anything else, it shouldn't be. Does everything say artificially colored and flavored on the front? Do the foods make your fingers feel greasy after eating them, or your lips feel like you just put lip gloss on, gentlemen? Okay. Is salt the first ingredient of all your spices and seasonings? Some people don't know that there's garlic powder and garlic salt. And garlic salt is salt with a little bit of garlic in it. And garlic powder is garlic with no salt in it. It's totally different. And if you've never thought of that, you might go home and see that all your seasonings are the salt. And so go ahead and trade those out for the powder. Or sometimes we have seasoning that we've had for like 3 years. We can just chunk that. Okay? Does the ingredient list include hydrogenated oils? That's something that's really bad for our heart, even in small amounts. And are there tempting snacks or sweets in plain view? We've talked about this already. Or meats like hot dogs, sausage, salami, bologna, ground beef. Are those the main meats in your drawers, in your deli drawer and things like that? So look at those, and I always say at Team Lean, if I was to immediately arrive at your house without any notice, would I know why you're struggling with your weight? Would I be able to open your pantries and say, oh, I could help you? Okay, so hopefully after tomorrow, that if I was coming over uninvited, which I will, no, I'm just kidding. If I come over and I just swing open everything, I'll be like, your team could win. Because even in a bad moment, you're going to eat something good, because this house is filled with good stuff. And that's what's on this other column. Foods that are perishable. We like food that dies and molds, because that means it was somewhat fresh to start with. Okay, so that's good. If you say, I'm going out of town, but I don't need to clean out my fridge, and I don't even need to clean it out when I get back, that means everything in your fridge was like packed with preservatives and salt, and that's not ideal. Okay. Are there homemade, ready-to-serve leftovers? Like whenever I cook, if I'm going to bother cook while I've got toddlers on hanging on my legs and whatnot, I'm going to double it, and I'm going to freeze it in a flat Ziploc. And it just makes it that much easier, because that's really easy to defrost in the bottom of my sink while I'm getting things ready for dinner in the evening. So make it worth your while. Do you have at least 3 rainbow colors in your fruit and veggie drawers in your or your bowl on your counter? Okay, more colors in your cart when you're at the grocery store, the better. Do you have any beans without sodium added? Okay, that's just the dried beans, or ones that say no sodium added. A colorful fruit bowl I mentioned. Are your meats lean? Okay, if you don't know what lean meats are, the word loin and the word round are lean cuts of meat. Are your dressings low or reduced fat? Are your cheeses low or reduced fat? I'm not a big fan of everything fat-free, but dressings and cheeses, they add up really, really fast. So I would say suggest low fat for those ones in particular. Does your milk say fat-free or reduced fat? We do want that on milks, because that's the artery clogging fat. Do you have at least 3 of the following whole grains? Brown rice, whole grain bread or pita flatbreads that are whole grain? Do you have oatmeal? Do you have whole grain crackers, whole grain cereal, whole grain pasta, or is everything white and refined? And there's lots of benefits from having the whole grain, but filling you up is one of them. That fiber fills you up. And the antioxidants for heart disease prevention and cancer and all that. So those are good things. So if you want to take that slide home, put a star or a circle and take it home and go through your kitchen and give yourself some guidelines there. Okay, everybody knows that on a typical plate you've got grains and different things, but we call these carbohydrates, fat, and protein. And the main thing you need to know is that when they're taken in the amount required for our bodies, we won't gain weight from them. But if we let too much carb come in, or too much fat, or too much protein even, then it spills over into that fat blob that I showed you. It just has to. So even if we eat our calories pretty good, if we're overdoing one of those food groups, sometimes we'll find that we gain weight from that. Okay, so balance is really important. All right, this is the way I like to do balance. Since I developed this slide, Choose My Plate has come out. The USDA used to do the pyramid, and now they do the plate. And it's somewhat similar. Mine is all veggies on the bottom, and it's kind of turned like this. And mine is fruit up here. So you could put the fruits and veggies on one level. But what I always like to tell people is your plate smiling at you? It's cheesy, but maybe you'll remember it. if it's smiling at you like Mickey there, then it's got lots of colors in the bottom of your plate with veggies. And that's going to help you the most in terms of cutting calories, because even if you fill that up with non-starchy veggies, there's not going to be that many calories versus just a small spoonful of mashed potatoes or something else that could make that go up quick. Okay? So that's just the basic. And again, food plate-wise, if there's nothing you learned from tonight, it's my plate needs to be smiling at me, half full, lots of veggies, lots of colors. Not starchy veggies. Starchy veggies have to go in the grain section, okay? Because they're kind of going to go with the grains and starches. And you need to have a breakfast. Some people like to have a snack or need it because they eat breakfast so early, or they work out in the morning and they feel really hungry before lunch. So if you need a snack, remember, I mean snack, I mean something strong and healthy and good for you. I don't mean vending machine. Okay, so just so you know, if you hear me say snacks are good, I don't mean like vending machines are good. Okay? Because a lot of people think that's what I mean. You let us eat snacks? I'm like, what do you mean by snacks? Because the look on your face makes me think you and I define snacks differently. Okay, so, but a plate, a healthy plate, it's mostly veggies, and you can put your fruit there, or you can put it on the side like your elementary school lunch has the apple over there. Okay? You have a quarter for the grains and a quarter for the lean protein. Whole grains, lean protein. It is so easy. I'm telling you guys, if everybody did this on a plate smaller than this, by the way, if everybody did this on a smaller plate, it would make such a huge difference. And that doesn't mean you can't have food that's mixed all together. You can. You still have to think about how it's placed out, though. Okay? So that's just so simple. It's so simple, but it makes a big difference. Does everybody get that? And this is about the palm of my hand for the protein. See how that is? And it's about the thickness of a woman's hand, right about there below your pinky. And the grain is just about enough to cup your hand over like you do with a computer mouse. Okay, now if you're very, very active, or you have a working job where you're physically working all day, you're going to need more than that in the carbohydrate zone. Okay, but you know who you are. Okay, so making at least half of those grains whole. That's what the USDA says. I say go ahead and make them all whole. Okay? Go ahead and make them all whole, because that holds you over longer. And then, that way when you go to a restaurant and they don't have any whole grains, you can say, well, I have been eating whole grains for 6 months. I can have this white grain today. It's not going to kill me. Or when you go to a friend's house or something, that way, at my house, I'm not going to have that. But if you have it at your house, I'm not going to be like, well, I don't eat that kind of stuff. So you don't get all snotty. You just say, this one time I can eat it because I do so good at home all the time. This isn't going to kill me. Right? So this doesn't turn us into like a health food snob. We just do well most all the time so that when something comes up where we can't, we can roll with it. Does that make sense? And this is just, again, you can go back and highlight the ones you like on these. If you keep these, some people keep all the seminar handouts in like a little manila folder or a little file in your drawer that you can refresh and review. It's not a bad idea. And these are some different whole grains, quinoa and bulgur wheat. You may have never tried. If you've never tried them, you might could go to Earth Fare because they have them on the bar, and you could try them and see if you like them and then try a recipe. I like quinoa in soup and different things like that. It's just a higher protein. It looks like a grain, but it's actually a seed. Okay, but these are all healthy whole grains. Popcorn actually is a healthy whole grain, depending on if it's yellow or white. And by yellow, I mean drenched with butter. Because popcorn from the movies is not popcorn anymore. It's butter with popcorn added, okay? It really is, y'all. It's like, it takes a 130-calorie popcorn serving and makes it like 980. I mean, it's a ton of saturated fat. So maybe that wouldn't be the best splurge. But if it is, share it with like the whole row that you sit with. And would anybody like to share my 900-calorie thing of popcorn? Sure, pass it down, okay? The other very important thing is eating at least 5 servings from this fruit and veggie group. Again, the more colors, the better. It might be a time to go and stand in the produce aisle and look at it and be like, huh, never tried eggplant before. Don't like cooked peppers, but I might like them raw. Don't like zucchini the way my mom makes it, but maybe I could make it different. You know, think about stuff. Don't just go, I live in the South, I only like green beans. And iceberg lettuce with ranch on top. I mean, that's what people eat around here, and they say, well, I don't need any of the other stuff, but it's there. Try it, and if you didn't like it your whole life, you might like it now. You have much more distinguished taste buds than you did even a couple years ago, I'm sure. Okay, so try some different things you haven't ever tried. A half a cup, if it's cooked or dense and chopped, is a serving. That's not hard to do. It's not hard to do. A cup, if it's cooked broccoli, is 1 serving, if it's cooked. So it's not hard to get those veggies in, and just a couple of these will fill up the bottom of that plate. All right, and for 25 calories at a pop and lots of fiber and antioxidants, so they don't fill you up with heavy fat fattening foods, okay? All right, and then the fruits, they have more calories, so we do a smaller portion of them because they have that natural sugar in them, which is sugar nonetheless. Okay, so a fruit would be more like a tennis ball size. So if you get the big, big grapefruits, you would just cut them in half if you want to count them as one fruit. Or the big, big apples, you would cut them in half. I just go ahead and buy the small ones so I don't have to cut them in half. Okay? Because then I just get them brown and think, you know, should I eat that? So try to choose frozen or fresh most of the time, and save canned for when you just don't have any other options. So I have a few canned things in my pantry, but I hardly ever touch them, and then there's those days occasionally where you're like, oh, I'm out of this, or this went moldy sooner than I thought, and that's when you use your canned veggies, not as your norm. Okay? If you can. And there are a lot of canned veggies now that don't have the salt added, so that's good. Try to choose those most of the time. How we doing? You guys be able to stick with me 10 more minutes and we'll be done? Okay, you're doing great. Okay, so here's a not so impossible sample. Some people say, well, I don't like fruits and vegetables, so I'm going to skip over this part. But if you have a half a cup of juice with breakfast, which is the most juice I ask for you to drink in a day. Once you go over a half a cup, that's just more sugar than your body needs at once, so it starts going, where can I put this? Oh, I know where I should put this. Put it where I put everything else that I don't need. My fill in the blank, right? Where do you put your extra padding? For everybody, it's different. Okay, so even juice, because you can drink a whole serving of juice in like 4 sips. So use those little bitty juice cups at your house if you drink juice, and never fill them up twice, because it's just more than you need. Liquid calories pack it on, y'all. They do. Okay, and if you do anything, if you're a liquid calorie drinker, if you do anything, you can just make a big difference if you give up a few Cokes, a few sugar packs in your coffee, a few juice cups, whatever it is. You can cut back major on calories. So that's good that you started there, because you have an easy way to just cut back in one big swoop. Okay? One medium banana for a snack. A medium banana is kind of small. If you do the big banana, then you have to cut it in half to count it as one fruit. Or you could eat the whole thing and count it as 2, but then not eat as much fruit later on those days, because banana is more dense. That's why some people say bananas make you fat. I'm like, well, no, they don't. They're just more dense, so don't eat such a big one, you know? Don't blame, bananas. Really, y'all, bananas are not getting people into trouble. That is not. Like, when people bring in their diet list, I don't go, we're going to have to talk about this banana. It is the last thing, the last thing. And I had one lady ask me over and over about whether her water should be purified or filtered, and I'm like, but she went to fast food 3 times a day. She was a bus driver, so she stopped. It was real easy and convenient. And I was like, we don't need to be talking about water right now. We need to be talking about Bojangles and McDonald's and all those things. So a lot of times we think, oh, well, I got to cut back the salt. That's all I got to cut back, because my mom or whatever had high blood pressure, so all we're going to talk about is salt. And meanwhile, we don't focus on some of the other things we really need to focus on, like the fat and other things that come with salt anyway a lot of times. So don't just get all focused on one thing, okay? Trade out the chips at lunch for raw veggies. Trade out the desserts for fresh fruits. That's an easy way to do that. Okay, so for this day, this person added up to 8 fruits and veggie servings. And if you go too much higher than that, then yes, your body will save fruits and veggies as fat, because if it doesn't need it, it safely secures it wherever you don't really want it to. Okay, so yogurt with the blueberries, if you're having yogurt, add some fresh fruit. Even if they say there's some fruit in there, there's not as much as you would put probably, so go ahead and throw some in there. The steamed broccoli, again, if it's a cup, it counts as 2. So it's not that hard to get that in. You guys think we could do 5? Okay, and what I love about people who do this is it displaces other things they were eating. If your typical lunch was sandwich and chips and a brownie bite or a cookie or something, well, now it's sandwich with spinach and tomatoes and stuff on it. That's really good for you, and an apple, and celery and carrots and broccoli dipped in something light. Okay? See, and so you don't add it all to what you already have. You bump something that you didn't need to have anyway. Okay, so those are counting up how many servings we've gotten to. So the first serving with the juice, the medium banana, is 2 servings. Yeah, because the small is 1 serving. The medium is 2. And then the 4th is the veggies. And so this person added up to 8 servings. So I'm just adding them up down the side as I went so you could see that happen. Okay? So when it comes to fats, some people go too low fat, and that's not ideal. We do need fat. It helps hold us from meal to meal without doing those crazy things that I told you we do when we get too hungry. Okay? So if you're eating Cheerios for breakfast with skim milk, you can add nuts. You can have a handful of this. You can lick a peanut butter off a spoon a little bit if you want. You need some fat at breakfast. That's going to last you 2 hours. at best. And if it lasts you 5, then you need to get up more and drive your car around, okay? Because if you can sit on 200 calories of breakfast all day long, then you're sitting too long. Try to get up and use it less like your car is staying on full, right? Or you may be on a medicine or something that affects your appetite, but try to move anyway, okay? But these are the ones you want to limit. Doesn't that look gross? But that's what I was explaining to my kids one time. They were asking about a family member who had a blocked artery, and I was like, well, pretend you take the hamburger out of the bottom of your pan and just scoop it into a straw, and then you try to let the blood flow through there, and it just doesn't do it. That's saturated fat. If it's solid at room temperature, like the side of your ham, or the strip in your bacon, or the bottom of your pan after you cook a hamburger, then that's artery clogging potential, and that's not the fat I want you to have, okay? That's saturated fat. So if it's creamy, like broccoli cream soup has 1 fluoride of broccoli and the rest is a stick of butter. Don't do the cream soups, okay? If it's creamy, it should caution you. It should be a big flag that says, do not eat Alfredo at a restaurant, especially where they put a whole cup in your food. That is one of those 2 weeks to work off kind of meals, okay? I'm not kidding. It's in the 2,000 calorie range a lot of the times. And that's, that's you and somebody else on your team's diet sometimes. That's a lot. Okay, so if it's creamy, look out, because we don't want your arteries clogged and we don't want you to put on so many calories at once. Okay, healthy fats are the ones that don't solidify at room temperature. And these are some that you can add in healthfully, but if you ate too many, they would still be stored as fat. Are y'all sick of me saying that? But I'm just making the point, right? And I did this in college when the news on the nuts came out that nuts was so good for you. I went through some nuts and all my clothes were so tight, and then I realized I was eating too many of those mixed nuts, but they were so good, but I just needed to have less. So it doesn't mean that I couldn't have them. I just needed to have not the handful, like the flat. If you sit it on your hand and give it a little wiggle, whatever stays on, that's a nut serving, not the scoop. Okay? Protein gets a lot of credit for weight loss because it holds you over pretty good from breakfast to lunch and lunch to dinner. But sometimes people eat too much of it. Okay? If it's bigger than the palm of your hand, it's probably too much. Unless you're super active and have a lot of muscle mass, and usually that's men or athletes, okay? So really 2 to 4 ounce servings at lunch and supper is what I recommend. And if you are not a meat eater, make sure you're getting a good protein, because beans and rice don't always hold you very well for very long, and then you might have to eat something more in between. So be careful on that. There's other things besides. You can do Greek yogurts, you can do cottage cheese, you can do other things that have good protein sources if you're not a meat eater, okay? So the lean cuts have what words in them? Loin and round. Those are the easy. If you're at a restaurant and you're like, what should I have? The other day my husband said, I had this sandwich at lunch the other day, and I think it was called a fat sandwich. And I said, well, what do you mean? He was like, I couldn't even eat it. And I said, what'd you get? He was like, it was just the sandwich at the Roadhouse place over there. And I'm like, well, what was it? He was like, I think it was a ribeye. And I'm like, yep, you had a fat sandwich. Like, that is what that means. Like, you try to get the loin or the round, because those really fatty cuts are just pure fat, and you can have yourself a fat sandwich. Okay, alcohol for some people, especially when I lived at the beach, people would leave my consult and be like, never mind, I'll keep my weight if it comes down to that. But I'm telling y'all that, like, some people eat perfectly and they exercise great, and at the end of our consult, I'm like, I wonder what's holding them back, and then they briefly mention how they wind down every day, and that's it. So if you're an alcohol drinker, try the spritz and try to cut it back. Try to have just a lot less, because your body has nothing to do with it. It can't send it to any of your body parts for strength or energy or repair. It just stores it for fat. It just goes straight to that blob. Okay? So cut way, way, way back on that, or cut the calories as much as you can. Do the skinny margaritas or whatever it is as much as you can, but cutting back. Even the alcohol, even the straight liquor goes straight to fat. Okay? And not to mention it raises your cancer risks, okay? Even slightly, even not that much. Salt, some people are more salt sensitive than other people, so just be real careful. If you know you swell a lot and your family has high blood pressure, then you're going to be more sensitive. But not everybody's that sensitive. This is not everybody's main concern. A lot of people think it's their main concern, so they avoid other things. But when you avoid all that junky stuff that comes from a crinkly package, like if you have to do all this crinkling a lot all during your day, then you're probably eating really packaged foods, and you probably have a lot of salt in those. So you don't have to stress too much about looking at salt. If you start eating healthy, lots of fruits and vegetables, then they don't have salt. They have like 2 milligrams of sodium or 17, nothing like a thing of soup or anything like that comes from a can or a package. So then you don't have to think about salt that much. You just think healthy, and it won't come with that much salt. Okay, so just a practical way, burn 250 calories more and eat 250 calories less to scientifically come up with a pound of weight loss a week, of fat loss. Okay, that's just an easy way to think of it. So if you recorded your calories this week and it said you usually eat 2,000, well then if you eat 250 calories less and you usually walk 2 miles, then you walk 2 more and you're burning 250 calories-ish more, then that's what's going to take for you to do that 1 pound a week. And if you want to double it, then you go 500 and 500. You don't try to take it all from exercise or all from food, because otherwise it feels like you're exercising all day or eating nothing. Okay, so you split it down the middle, and that's just a practical way to do it. Okay, and there's lots of examples you could think of. So as we wrap up, I'd like you to pick 2 or more that would make a difference in you. For some of these, you're like, I'm already really good at that. Well, don't pick that one. You're already really good at that. Okay, pick one that you need to work on, and maybe even ask one of your team members to help you to be accountable to that. Okay. So here's the ones that I see to be the most critical for people when they're trying to lose weight that are most helpful. If you have a pen, go ahead and check off what you like. Log intake, the amount, when, and consider your hunger level when you're doing that. Okay? You can do it the Super Tracker way or MyFitnessPal. There's lots of different options. Measure your portions. Don't log your food and say, I think that was about a cup. Oh no. Y'all. You have no idea. I've done a test on that. I had a bunch of people come up and measure what they thought a half a cup of this and a half a cup of that was at one of my seminars one time. Nobody got it right. Okay? You have to measure for a good week before you really know. And then what I suggest is measure for the first week of every month for the rest of your life. Because then you'll really be good at it, and they'll never be like, go in your calendar and literally mark the first week as the measuring week. Put it in your phone. It'll remind you. This is your measuring week, so that you never steer too far away, because your portion, even if you change everything you eat, your portions could grow if you don't pay attention. Okay? Smaller plates and smaller bowls and smaller cups is helpful for that. Eating only planned snacks. So if you know you're going to be eating at lunch at 12 and dinner at 7, definitely plan a snack. Do not feel guilty for eating in between there. Okay? But plan it so that you don't end up eating something when you're kind of crazy, like I told you you get at 4 o'clock when you haven't had anything to eat since 12. Y'all know that. Everybody gets crazy at like 4 o'clock. And usually it's crazy for chocolate or sweets or fries. Something salty or sweet, right? Okay, that's when we get crazy. Is anybody with me on that? Okay. I just thought I was strange maybe by myself. Okay, eat only planned snacks. Avoid habitual second helping. Some people do this every time they see mashed potatoes. Scoop, scoop. Well, what if scoop one would have just done the same thing? Well, they would have been just as happy. So sometimes whenever we get a pizza, we eat half of it. That's how we've been doing it in our lives. Well, then we always feel kind of after that. So don't do that. You know, just check the one and see how you feel afterward. Drink that extra cup of water. See if you're really full. If you really think you're hungry. Maybe you're not. Okay, decreasing the fat, since fat, every gram is 9 calories. So when you decrease the fat, you decrease the calories quickly. So decreasing fat always helps, unless you're already too low. So be careful if you're already too low. Limit avoiding soft drinks and sweets. If you love sweets and you know that you would quit Team Lean right now if I said you could never have a sweet again, okay, because there's a lot of people in here that would do that, then say, I can have 50 calories of sweets a day. And go, if it's a blow pop, that's 50 calories. Okay? I'm like, that's not worth it. If it's a bite of cheesecake, that's about 50 calories too. So you go ahead and have it, but know that 50 calories of your day is that, instead of just going ahead and splurging on the whole brownie a la mode. Okay? So having a little bit of that, if it helps you keep from overdoing it, I think is a good idea for people who love sweets or love salty. Go ahead and plan it in, but give it a limit. Okay? Eat breakfast every day. I can't stress that enough. A good breakfast with fiber and protein. And now they have fiber and protein cereals out there galore. I'll tell you my favorite. It's called Optimum Power Blueberry Flax. That's my favorite, just in case anybody wants to know what a good cereal is, because they don't have an idea. Optimum Power by Nature's Way. Drink at least 60 ounces of water each day. And a lot of times we're doing everything good, but we don't have water, which is the main element to a lot of our metabolism cycles to do well. So will water make you lose weight? Well, if you needed it for your cycles, yes. For all those Krebs cycles and all the different cycles you learned about in chemistry, H2O is part of them, it's important. So drink that water, okay? Encourage your teammates, get water bottles together, whatever it is. Make it an outing. Walk to the store and get water bottles and walk home, whatever it is, to get you drinking that water. But that's just about it. I told y'all I would talk fast, but y'all listened fast, I could tell, because you did really good. You stayed with me. And remember why you made your changes, because if there's a reason that motivates you besides a class reunion, besides something that's temporary, then that'll help you hold that longer. So be thinking about why you're doing the things you do. Okay, so did everybody pick a few that they could work on? Okay, some of y'all know what your teammates can work on, and they don't even know yet, so be careful as you encourage them. You might be able to help them find something to work on. And we are going to do our raffle now.
Let's do something like